2017 Hall of Fame inductee, Tom McNall. We're here in a building special to you, I'm sure. But before we talk about that, we got a lot of things to talk about. And as I always do when I meet you guys, how did the game start for you?
Well, this is where I started, like you said, and my parents brought me out here when I was 8 years old. It was probably the last place I wanted to be. But, I got to meet a few kids, and we began to meet on the corner of 13th and Pasqua, and came out here and played most days until supper time, went home for supper, and then went to the ball diamond. It was a really tough life. And I just don't know how I got through that, but that's how I got started. And, I've been playing ever since. I played 22 years here, and I'm into my 42nd year at the West Canada.
Wow, when they say it's a game for life, that's the epitome of you right now.
Yeah, I've over the years I've met hundreds, if not thousands, of people, and just some really great people helped me get my business started, and it's just a great sport that you could play forever type of thing. So yeah.
So how did you stay focused again as an 8-year-old? That's young, and it sounds like really without any supervision out there. Kids were different then, of course, but
I remember sitting behind the first tee with watching Joanne Goulet and my late friend Dick Fraser hit it a mile down the fairway. Dick was about 7 years older than me, and saying to myself, wow, how am I ever going to hit it that far? But as you well know, as you get older and stronger, you start hitting it further, and it's come to the point now where I've reached my peak and I'm going backwards. But I grew up playing three main sports: golf, hockey, and baseball, and I was focused in all three of them, and I had some success in all three. So that's how I kept focused. I'm a fairly competitive person, as a lot of people would tell you.
Yeah, and junior success came early, and then there were some teams, and then you were one of the top kids around the province for a good stretch there.
Yeah, I played in a lot of junior events that I did okay, and I did that from, like I said, the age of 8 to 18. Never made a junior team, but they had a lot of junior development programs that I played in, and that's how I progressed up the ladder type of thing.
Do you remember how old you were when you got to go to Toronto? I believe there was a junior event.
Toronto, I was 18. It was the Canadian Junior, and it was the year they sent, it was a centennial year where they sent 7 kids.
Okay.
So my mom and dad felt sorry for me that I blew the last round at the West Canada not to make the team. So they sent me to Toronto, played at the Toronto Country Club. In those years you qualified, then it was match play. And I qualified for match play, 64 players, and I played the third low qualifier, and I beat him. And I think he was mad for 2 reasons: that I was from Saskatchewan and I was left-handed. And then I lost my next match. But that was a great experience. And the fellow we went with was a reporter from the Lear Post, Ron Campbell, and he looked after all 7 of us. And he had big write-ups in the paper. We played Mississauga Golf Course, and he had he really treated us well, and it was just great experience.
Yeah, you say that was 1967, and just looking ahead to Wellington Cup team and not till 79, a 12-year gap. I'm sure there was still lots of competitive. Was that the time when family came involved, or some?
No, not really. We had our kids. Ryan was born in 77, and I played most of my golf from 79 to 90.
That's kind of opposite a lot of guys. Yeah,
no, that's right. Yeah, no, I had a very forgiving wife, and I just played in those days from 18 to when I was 18 until the age of, or the year 1979. I played a lot of golf at the club here with guys that were pretty good players. We had a good group of guys, maybe 24 players, that had made Wellington Cup teams, and so that's where I learned, and that's where I played a lot of golf.
So was there a point where you got really into it and refocused almost to try and make some teams and attend some national?
Well, in that period prior to 79, I did play in some amateurs in Wellingtons, but even though I think I was an okay player, I had some setbacks. I made some life changes in 1977 that helped me play a little bit better golf. In fact, that helped us. We had 3 more kids pretty quick after that. And I was able to establish my own business in 1985, which is still in existence. I sold it to the two older boys in December of 2011, and they have taken over the business, and they're really doing quite well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We follow.
So most of my success was in years that you wouldn't think I'd be playing that much golf. But in 1986, when I made a Wellington Cup team and went to Fredericton, that year I only played 41 rounds, and that was the best Canadian amateur I ever had. You know, it doesn't sound like much, but I finished in 31st.
Yeah.
And that was a field of 180.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm of the philosophy you could play way too much golf. And so I'd rather be more mentally into it than play 10 rounds before a championship type of thing. So, and some people are different than that. So,
for sure. And
yeah.
I know your boys are obviously quite into it, and you guys still have a Father's Day match every year. And I don't know if it's here or Wascana, but you still get out with them, hey?
Yeah, well, we couldn't get on a course this year, so we played at the Murray, which I haven't played in years. And of course, they made me play from the back, and I can't play from the back anymore.
Sean can't play from there now.
Pardon?
Sean can't play from there now.
No, they're both pretty good players.
They are really good players.
And Tyler is our younger guy, and me and him are usually partners, and we play handicap. And he only plays 2 to 4 times a year, and he'll shoot in the mid 80s. So all 4 of them were in the junior program at the Wascana, and the cost there was $125, and when I compared that to hockey, it was a steal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Ryan and Sean, that's where they learned how to play, and Tyler, he played, but he didn't have the same interest. And our daughter played, but she usually came back after 2 or 3 holes because the mosquitoes were too bad. But at least we gave her the opportunity to play, and all the kids, and they could still go and play, but I mean they're not going to be as good as they could have been if they would have continued playing.
For sure. We were talking off the record ahead as you brought in a great scrapbook, and that'll be part of this feature with you. But you mentioned, the Barb Danahars, the Joanne you mentioned a little bit, but it was some experiences provided by them that helped improve your game or just make you the great player you were.
Yeah, no, they drastically helped. Like I indicated, when the Wellington in the 60s, they played 4 rounds of golf at the Saskatoon City, the Riverside, the Regina Club, and the Wascana. And when the men came down here, like the Ed Rosses, the Jim Sissons, the Keith is from the Wascana, I caddied for Ed. He asked me to caddy for him, and I probably caddied for him for 3 to 5 years.
So I'm going to interrupt you here. When I watched an old Access tape of him that is now on our YouTube page, where he talked about he had the same gentleman he took to tournament caddying. Is that you?
Oh, I bet you it was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's an old video.
Yeah, because actually, after he caddied for me, I played a junior tournament at the Riverside, and it was a downpour rain, and Ed was there caddying for me. I felt so sorry for him, and I was hacking, and he was caddying for me and played as anything, and the same with Barb Turnbull, or Mrs. Turnbull as I call her. She came down to play in ladies' events, and she was a good player, really good, and I caddied for her probably 3-4 years in a row. I don't know if she would remember me, but and I learned so much from, because she usually played with Joanne, and then a couple of other ladies that were equally as good.
Yeah, what a group that was.
Yeah.
Back in the day, for sure, for Saskatchewan.
Yeah, no, Saskatchewan's had some really good players, but it's really hard to compete with Alberta, BC, Ontario, Quebec. I know when I went to one Canadian amateur in 1979, the guy I was playing with told me they had 2,000 people trying to qualify just to get into their Ontario amateur.
Wow.
So you could imagine how good those guys could be and were, and that's why they won so many Canadian Wellingtons.
For sure.
Yeah.
We got the one in '64 with some of those guys you just mentioned.
Yeah.
That must have been a big thing for you as a young golfer in the province to see that, because it seems like you were in tune with the newspaper and stuff, so you would have seen that.
Oh no, for sure. No, that was great. That was great. Yeah, 64. I'm not sure if they counted 3 out of 4 scores or 4 out of 4, but that was a strong effort by the Saskatchewan team. And any time they do that. You got to applaud them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then some of the guys that have left Saskatchewan, like Lindsay Bernacavage and Graham Dillette. Yeah, Arden Knoll is a guy I played with, and it's good to see him do well, but it's tough.
It is
You're
tough.
a dime a dozen. Like I used to work for a fellow by the name of Cease Ferguson, who was one of the top players in Canada, and he missed qualifying. In those days, you qualified, and the top 125 got into the PGA Tour, and he missed it twice. And he was a really good player. But,
unbelievable for sure.
Yeah, it's tough.
They're good.
It's tough,
yeah. So are you in the Hall of Fame as a player or a builder? Because I think we talked about the Fraser Cup. I think this past summer doing, kind of promote the inter-club things in Saskatchewan that do go around. But remind us about the Fraser Cup.
Yeah, the Fraser Cup was introduced. It's a match between the Regina Club and the Wascana, based much on the Ryder Cup format. And it's named after my late friend Dick Fraser, who was a member of the Regina and Wascana like me. And it's just great. And whether I introduced it or not, somewhere down the road somebody would have introduced it. So I just got in there a little bit sooner. I just went in and saw Greg Ducart, our general manager, and suggested to him this tournament. And he was on board. And then we were talking, what are we going to name it? So he said he was going to do some research. I went home, started watching TV, and Dick's name just came to me. Nobody more natural than Dick to name a tournament after, because everybody liked him. So I went back to Dick back to Greg, and he asked me if Dick had played at both courses, and I said yeah, and he says, well, that's what we'll name it, and that's where it started, and we've had about 5 of those now. 5, maybe 6.
Every second year is that kind of?
Yeah, every second year, and the Regina is starting to win more than the Wascana, but it's all in fun.
Yeah.
And so they got the bragging rights, and they do have better players. I know when I was growing up, the clubs that had the better players was the Regina Club, Cook Municipal, and the Saskatoon City.
Okay.
Like Sissons was over at the City Club. So, but I mean that changes all the time, and I would still say the Regina Club has probably got some of the better players in the province.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You mentioned how they have fun. Though it sounds like you've had a lot of fun on golf courses.
Oh, for sure. Like I said, I've met hundreds, if not thousands, of people, and they most of them are really good. And you have a 4 to 5 hours out on the golf course. You learn stuff about different people, and then it's there for you afterwards to have a pop or some food, and then if you have a really good relationship, you want to play more with that person.
There was a time on our board of directors as well back when it was association. So there's even some administrative stuff for you.
Yeah.
None at all.
Yeah. I was on the Golf Saskatchewan for a couple of years with Bob Elmore. Jack Eisner was the president. Bill McRae was the secretary treasurer. And I've been on the board at the Wascana, not on the board, on subcommittees. And I was on the course and grounds and the junior committee. And actually, I was on the board. I was on the board for a 2-year term, and then I just decided that was enough. So.
For sure. Back to 2017, again, you didn't do any of this to be recognized or be a member of a Hall of Fame, but you're in the Golf Hall of Fame. Do you remember, that night? I guess it was going 3.5 years ago when that all went down.
I certainly remember it. Yeah. The reason I remember it is because all my kids were there with girlfriends. It was a great night. The only thing that was maybe not so good, the supper was kind of late. But after that, it was just great, and I'll remember that the rest of my life. Sissons was there, and Doug Piper, and some people I know. Some of the people from Regina wanted to come, but I just told them, you don't have to. It's X number of dollars, and so I think more people would have come if I would have been in Regina here. But no, it was a great night, and the most important thing is my 3 boys and my daughter was there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just to wrap it up, what has this game meant to you? Can you describe that?
Well, sure. It's meant everything to me. It's opened a lot of doors. I've lived here all my life, so it's opened a lot of doors for business, to meet different people. It's just been quite a bit.
Thanks for
Yeah.
doing this today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.